As executive board members, you play a really important part in shaping how new members experience your chapter, especially during the first couple of weeks. For a lot of people, that new member period is when they decide whether they actually feel like they belong in their chapter. And while most chapters really value sisterhood and inclusion, it's still very common for new members to feel disconnected, left out, or unsure of where they fit in. What's important is to understand that this usually isn't about people being intentionally exclusive. It's not that members are trying to leave others out. Instead, these patterns happen because of predictable social dynamics, and here's where social psychology can help. There's a lot of research showing that when people enter a new group, they start organizing their social world almost immediately. One of the most important concepts here is social identity. When someone joins a group, they naturally start thinking about where they fit, who they connected with, who feels similar, and who they're most comfortable around. These decisions often happen really quickly, and they're based on small things. It could be on who they met first, who they sat next to, or who they happened to talk to more during recruitment. Even those really minor interactions can shape early connections in a big way. As a result, small groups tend to form pretty quickly within new member classes. And once those groups form, another process kicks in, which is called in-group bias. This basically means that people prefer to spend time with those who feel familiar or similar to them. So they keep going back to the same few people because it feels easier and more comfortable. Again, this isn't intentional or malicious, it's just how people naturally behave. But over time, this can lead to really strong social divisions within a group. So instead of a fully connected chapter, you end up with small clusters of people who mostly interact with each other, while other members feel more on the outside. One of the most effective ways to address this as a leader is to be intentional about how interactions are structured, especially early on. If interactions are left completely unstructured, people will naturally stick with who they already know. But as an executive board member, you can help members build connections with a wider range of people. If you intentionally mix groups through assigned seating, rotating small groups, or planned activities, you can foster a closer sisterhood. An example of an activity that could help prevent cliques could be new member speed dating, where, similar to recruitment, girls are randomly assigned to have short conversations with various sisters. This could also include initiated members of the chapter for a more holistic sense of incorporation. Another really important factor in new member experience is social comparison. When people enter a new environment, like a sorority, they're constantly evaluating themselves in relation to others. They might compare things like appearance, social confidence, or how well they think they're fitting in. In an environment where these things are highly visible, like social events, recruitment settings, or even social media, these comparisons can become really intense. The problem is people tend to make upward comparisons, meaning they compare themselves to people they perceive as doing or being better in some way. And that can lead to feelings of insecurity, even if those perceptions aren't necessarily accurate. So someone might feel like everyone else is more confident, more connected, or more accepted than they are, even when it's not actually true. As leaders, one of the ways you can reduce this is by shaping the tone of the environment. That can look like discouraging appearance-based comments, avoiding language that creates competition or ranking, and modeling confidence that isn't based on comparison. Even small shifts in what's considered normal can change how people feel about themselves and their place in the group. This leads to another important concept, which is called normative social influence. Over time, the behaviors that people observe around them start to feel like the standard. People look to what others are doing and assume that's what's expected and allowed. So even if someone doesn't like certain dynamics, like exclusivity or constant comparison, they may still go along with it because it feels like that's just how things are. That's why norms can be so powerful. And this is another area where executive board members have a lot of influence. What you model, what you reinforce, and what you allow all contributes to the norms of the chapter. If inclusive behavior is recognized and encouraged, it becomes part of the culture. But if exclusivity goes unaddressed or modeled by the executive board, that can also become normalized. As an executive board, Consider the ways that you can address negative behavior without formal punishments, such as standard meetings or fines, and how you can encourage and reward positive and inclusive behavior. Another concept that's important when understanding the experience of new members here is called pluralistic ignorance. This happens when people privately feel one way but assume everyone else feels differently. So, in this context, a lot of new members might feel unsure, disconnected, or out of place, but think they're the only one that is feeling that way. Because of that, everyone acts like they're comfortable and confident, even when they're not. And this creates a cycle where no one speaks up and the perception that everyone else is fine continues. Breaking that cycle can make a big difference. As leaders, you can do that by creating space where people feel comfortable being honest and vulnerable. That might mean normalizing that it's okay to feel out of place at first, sharing your experience as a new member, or checking in with members individually instead of only in group settings. You can also consider using regularly administered surveys to new members and allowing them to choose if they want to be anonymous or not. Even small moments of honesty can help people realize they're not alone in what they're experiencing. So when you look at all of these concepts together, social identity, in-group bias, social comparison, norms, pluralistic ignorance, they all point to the same idea. Belonging in a chapter, even if it's a great fit, doesn't just happen automatically. It's shaped by how interactions are structured, what behaviors are reinforced, and what leaders like you choose to prioritize. As executive board members, you have the ability to influence all of those things and make a meaningful difference not only in their new member experience, but also their holistic college experience. And the most important takeaway is that small, intentional changes can have a really big impact. Things like mixing groups, setting clear expectations for inclusivity, modeling positive behavior, and creating opportunities for honest connection can completely change how new members experience your chapter. But without intention, they can lead to patterns where some members feel more connected, while others feel uncertain, left out, or like they don't fully belong. And often, those feelings go unnoticed and unvoiced. Someone might show up to every event, participate, and seem completely fine on the outside while internally feeling disconnected or unsure of where they fit. Because of things like pluralistic ignorance, they may assume that they're the only one that feels that way, and that makes it even harder for them to speak up or reach out. That's why leadership is so important. As executive board members, you have the ability to shape not just what your chapter does, but how it feels to be a part of it. The structures you put in place, the behaviors you model, and the norms you reinforce all send signals about what is valued and what is expected.